Hi everyone, I'm Heather Borden-Hervé with Good Morning Wilton, and I'm here at the Wilton Police Department with Captain Tom Conlon and Captain Rob Cipolla, and we are here talking about a really important vote that's going to be happening as part of the annual town meeting on Tuesday, May 3rd. Also on Saturday, May 7th, is the continued voting, is the bonding project for a new police headquarters. It's a $16.5 million bonding question that you're going to be asked to vote on, yes or no. So the police department, the current headquarters, is how many years old?
So it was built in 1976, and when it was built for a 29 all-male police department. Obviously, things have changed a lot since then. Almost 40 years, and now we're a 44-person police department with 5 female officers. And there was no computers back then, no technology like we have now. They were using typewriters and pens and paper to document things, and policing has changed so much. Even, we should have had a building probably 20 years ago, but it's taken a while, but we're hoping at this point we can move forward with something.
And I know that the town has worked with a really well-respected architecture and engineering firm to create and design the new plans. All of that information is up on the Town Hall Police Building website.
Well, in 2012, 2013 is when we started getting the space needs assessment, and again reaffirming what we need, the more size we need to address the overcrowding, as well as becoming more of a modern police facility. And here we are now in 2022, almost 10 years since then, and we're finally going to get to that town vote where hopefully we've informed the public enough in terms of those needs, and they can get out and vote and make that informed decision.
Yeah, and this is something that really, it's not anyone's fault necessarily, but in terms of budgeting and making sure that the town as a whole can run efficiently, for a lot of years, for several of the facilities, there have been repairs and maintenance things that have been deferred. And this is one of those much larger projects that at this point, I think the town has come to an understanding that things have really been deferred just much too long. So let's go on, let's take a look inside. We'll show you everything, and let's see what's happening really inside.
Hey, welcome to the police department. You gotta remember, there was no computers back in the late 70s, and now, obviously we have computers now, and when you look at an area like this, it's just a rat's nest of wires, and when you go to fix something, you usually break something else. The computers don't last as long because they're not in the 21st century server room. They're just in a cabinet with a little fan blowing out. So this area is our prisoner processing room, or what we call our booking area. And one of the issues with this room is if you're a citizen and you come to make a complaint, whether it be a traumatic incident like maybe an assault or a domestic violence issue or a child custody issue, this room isn't the kind of room you want to come and do that. It's where we process prisoners. And so in the new building, there's a room designed that's like a soft interview room where you would go, and it'd be more comforting for someone who's been through a traumatic incident to be able to talk to an officer and go over what happened. Jail cells, they're 50 years old. They were designed for that era. These days, police officers deal more and more with people who have mental health issues. Try to get them help, maybe go to a hospital, but sometimes they do commit crimes, and these jail cells aren't designed to hold somebody like that might be a danger to themselves. One of the issues with this facility is you need to be able to separate a juvenile that may be brought into custody by sight and by sound from an adult offender. So the law says we have to keep them separated by sight and sound, which we can't currently do with this facility. Another thing you'll notice as we go through the building, there's no sprinkler systems in this building, and there's no smoke alarms. The building is just has 50-year-old heat sensors that if a fire starts and it melts the heat sensor, then it goes off. So it doesn't have smoke alarms like that. No sprinkler systems, which is obviously way out of code from anything that in the past 25 years.
Yeah, one of the parties is requested to be evaluated by EMS.
The town of Wilton, you'll look at it, it says 18,000 residents in the town, but what you have to understand, Route 7 is one of the major thoroughfares in the state of Connecticut. And on a Monday through Friday, we can get up to over 33,000 people coming through town during rush hours. It could be better equipped to deal with where we have a large population in town. Sometimes we'll use it as a station to work at, and it's not in a great location because it becomes so busy in here with the administrative wing, the detectives, the back door, the front door. It can get very distracting for someone trying to work at a workstation like this. But unfortunately, the size of the building, we just don't have enough room and enough workstation areas for workstations that we have to use an area like this when it probably shouldn't be used for this. We've got radar units and medical supplies and cleaning supplies all at the back door here because we just don't have room to store this equipment. whether you're looking for latent fingerprints or DNA evidence, you use chemicals sometimes, and you need to be able to aerate or filter the air in a room when you're doing stuff like that, obviously. And this room can't do that. It's a bit of a hazard to try and to examine some types of evidence in a room like this. It's supposed to be evidence processing, a lab, and it's not anymore. It's more of a storage area because we just don't have enough room in the building for these items. When we do bring evidence in from, say, a patrolman maybe makes an arrest and has drugs, or may have items that were stolen, that evidence comes in, they fill out some forms, and they put it in a cabinet, which is outside this room. And then when the lieutenant comes in on Monday, he'll take the items out of the cabinet, do some more paperwork, and then put it into the evidence room, where it could be a chain of custody issue for us. Whereas in the new building, or modern building, you'll see the evidence room actually has pass-throughs, which are like little lockers that when you process evidence or you take evidence in and you fill out the paperwork, you put that evidence into a locker, you close it, it can't be reopened, and the only way to access it is actually from inside the evidence room. And so then when the lieutenant would come in, he'd go into the evidence room, take the evidence in, and it's a much cleaner way to handle evidence and the whole chain of custody of evidence. It's a much better way.
Even to get to the lower level of the building, we're not ADA compliant, and our locker rooms are downstairs. We have officers that are out on light duty status for whatever various injury may be, and if they can't get to the locker room, we got to bring their uniforms up to them. New building would have an elevator in it, ADA compliant all the way through. So primary function is break room, but you can see, as you see throughout the building, every nook and cranny is put to use. You got the charging station for the officers' radios, portable radios there. You got their mail bins. You got the charging station for their body-worn camera over there. Here we have a computer monitor, an area for officers to write their reports. Not an ideal space to do that in a break room when someone's possibly down here having lunch, maybe the TV's on.
So not only is it the briefing room, but it's also, you can see in the distance there, there's 2 cubicles for report writing for officers, and there's also a cubicle for the sergeants for their report writing and their tasks. Not a great place to have cubicles and workstations in a briefing room where we're in talking. It could be very distracting for officers trying to do their work. Another thing you'll see is this actually converts to the Emergency Operations Center for the town, which opens quite frequently, more than you'd think. Anytime we have a hurricane or a natural disaster or maybe a man-made disaster, this opens up, and you'll see First Selectman will be here, the Emergency Management Director. There'll be the police, fire, and EMS will all be down here. We'll have the Wilton CERT, the Community Emergency Response Team will be in the room, as well as Public Works. And then usually we'll have a representative from Eversource, because usually those natural disasters involve some kind of significant power outages for the town. And obviously the most important thing in those situations is trying to get power restored to our residents. And this is the room where a lot of that work is done. Sergeant's cubicle over here, it's actually for 5 sergeants that work patrol. So that's the day, evening, and midnight sergeant, as well as the 2 sergeants that cover their days off. And they all work out of this one cubicle. And it may be okay if that's all they were doing, but these sergeants are also tasked with, one of our sergeants works closely with the Domestic Violence Task Force and does a lot of work for them. Another sergeant handles all of our equipment, and when it comes to cars, like radar units and body-worn cameras and in-car video, and 5 or 10 other things that he does for when he works with cars. And then we have another lieutenant that is a drug recognition expert, and she works closely. That's a new thing that's come now that marijuana has been legalized. A drug recognition expert is someone that can identify someone who's under the influence of some kind of narcotic or drug, as opposed to just alcohol. And it's a very important role, and she does a lot of work out of this cubicle as well. And then we have another a sergeant that deals with the armory and firearms. And so they have a lot of work to do outside of just their patrol duties. And in the new building, you'll see there's a designated area that they all get their own cubicle, their own desk, their own workstation, which would be a force multiplier for the town, in that they'd be able to get much more done trying to fight over one workstation.
This is the men's locker room, and certainly right from the get-go, what you can see is there's not even enough space within the size of the current lockers to house all of the officers' equipment and gear. You see their boots on top of the lockers. The vests are kept outside of the lockers just because of the moisture. When you put them in the locker, it builds a stench. Modern lockers are much bigger. They have ventilation. They have charging stations for your radio, body-worn camera equipment. Just simply have outgrown the space for the size of the lockers. I mean, you can see they're falling apart in some instances. You know, when this building was originally constructed in the 70s, it was an all-male police force. Currently, we have 5 female officers. One of the great benefits of the new building is how they are constructing the locker rooms, where there'll be a wall separating the men's and women's locker room, but it will have the flexibility to move in either direction to accommodate for the constantly changing demographic of the police department.
But there's lots of towns that are looking to hire people, and as a person who's looking for a job, you may go to different facilities and say, wow, I'd like to work there. And unfortunately, you might come here and say, wow, this place is pretty run down or pretty old. So one of the questions we frequently get asked is why a new building as opposed to renovating this or just building off to one of the sides or even going up. We looked at all kinds of options throughout that process, and the building committee made tours of area police departments, some that were recently renovated and some that were brand new buildings. In some of the renovated buildings, they were getting mold issues because you'd have 2 different heating systems, one for the original building and one for the addition, and then you're running those 2 systems and the cost of running those 2 systems. In the end, we looked at 5 different proposals. 3 of them were renovations to this building with add-ons, and 2 were new buildings. And a brand new building over, say, a 30 or 40 or 50-year life cycle like we expect it to be, that new building would be just way more efficient, would have a better envelope when it comes to like electrical and heating and cooling, and it would have a much better workflow as opposed to a renovated building. In the long term, the cost in a new building would far outweigh, the benefit of trying to do a renovation now.
I hope now everybody understands exactly what kind of things are going on here and why this vote on Tuesday, May 3rd is important. Not only is it the budget vote, there are several other items that are questions and referendum that you need to consider yes or no votes on, and what the town is going to spend and the way they spend your tax money. Thank you very much for explaining it to everybody.
Welcome.
As always, everybody, check out goodmorningwilton.com. Get the daily newsletter into your inbox every Monday through Friday. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Let us know if there's a story you want us to cover. And other than that, we'll see you around. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.